Let's see if you can get my perspective here while I'm working on making a mat. Alright, so the first video showed all the plarn making, linking the bags together. It's a pretty easy process, a couple videos on this. So once we have this whole bag plarn here, let's go ahead and get started with making a mat. So the other video shows you would want to make a mat lengthwise. I'm going to show you how to make a mat widthwise. I feel like it rolls up better. You can make it in smaller pieces. So anyway, we're going to start with this. You take the bag and you're going to roll it around your hand just like the other one. And pinch this link. Put your fingers through here. Pinch this link and pull it through. Alright, so the gauge for these loops here, this is going to be the first loop. The gauge for these loops is going to be your first two fingers and your thumb. The last video showed using your whole hand, and that actually makes the loops a little bit too loose, and so the resulting mat is not as thick and tight as it needs to be. So if you can stick to just using your two fingers and your thumb, you'll be able to grab the link pretty easily and your hand won't get too worn out. Alright, so this is going to be my first loop here. So there's one. I'm just going to keep grabbing this chain here and I'm going to pull it through the loop, and as I push it off, I want to make sure that the new one I pull up is again the same gauge here. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Okay, so for the size of my hand, I've found that 18 stitches works. That gets me a mat that's about 2.5 to 3 feet wide. That's going to be the size that we're looking at here. So as we get this guy stretched out a little bit, got 18 stitches. So 18 will actually translate into 17 stitches long, and that gives us one more stitch as a turning chain. So I'll show you what the turning chain means here. So I've got this last loop, again as big as my fingers, and I'm actually going to take this whole thing and flip it over so that I can work from the right back to my left. It's only because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you could obviously mirror this, probably get the same results there. Alright, so these loops that I just made, you see these little loops here? That's what I'm going to stick my thumb and my fingers actually through that and grab this link, and when I pull it up, now I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to have one loop and then the original loop that I started with on my hand. So I've got 2 loops on my hand, and then I'm going to take this link again and I'm just going to pull it through both of those loops, and that finishes off my stitch. Okay, so I'm going to push that kind of to the side, and here's the next one. I'm going to put my fingers through that loop and grab that chain and pull it up. Make sure my gauge is just my 3 fingers. We don't want these loops getting too big here. And grab this and pull it through. So I'm going to continue down these links all the way to this side. So I've got 2 stitches done. There's 3. So here's that next loop. There's 4. And don't worry about these first row or 2. It does straighten out after you get going here. And you'll see that this starting chain kind of stretches out as well. So go back into this one, pull up a loop, and then pull through both of them. Go in. So sometimes hard to kind of find those loops there. Pull up one, pull through 2. one loop, pull through 2. Sorry you hear the nuggets fighting in the background. It's just constant background noise here. So pull up 1 loop, pull through 2. I'll get to the end of this row here and I'll show you how we do the turning, because that seems to be another interesting point here. So pull up 1 loop, pull through 2. Okay. You'll see my right hand is kind of my hook here, but my left hand keeps feeding that link through for me. Push my fingers through there. Pull up a new loop. 2. I'm getting closer to the end. Make sure the rows go a little bit faster here. Okay. This one. And I'm going to go right into this very last one, the very first one I did. Pull up my loop. Sorry, pull through 2. Okay, so at this point I've gone through all the loops here, and you'll see it's kind of wobbly, wonky. It's okay. First row is always like that. But I need room to turn now. So once you've got through the very last stitch, you're just going to grab this link all by itself, and you're going to grab it and you're going to pull through just 1 loop. So see that kind of hangs you off to the side here. And we're going to take it, we're going to flip this whole thing over. And so if you're used to crocheting with yarn, a lot of times people will skip this very first stitch and go to the second one. But we're actually going to go right back into this very first stitch, because that's what's going to give the mat a really tight weave here. The edges will be a little bit bumpy, but with this material everything's kind of bumpy, and so I would rather have it be tighter and the edges a little unstraight than to have holes in the mat. So again, we're going to turn, take these fingers, and I'm going to reach through and grab that link. So I've got the 2 in my hands. I'm going to grab it and pull through again. And then so each of these top loops from the stitches I just made before, you'll see here's the next one to go into. Grab it up. So here's the next one. And unlike a normal single stitch, we are just going through that top loop instead of trying to go through both of them. So here's my next loop. And back 1 and pull through 2. All the while trying to keep that gauge just as big as your thumb and your 2 fingers. If it starts to get too loose, you're going to end up with larger gaps in the mat. But you want to make sure you have at least enough room for your fingers, because you are going to have to try to go back into it for the next row. Try to find your gauge. It's not too tight, not too loose. Down to the end here. Let's see, here's this very last one on the end. Go right into that. 1, 2. And then since I'm at the end of the row, then I'm going to make that one little guy out all by itself. And flip the whole thing over. And we're going to start again. So with that row, you'll see it starts to square off quite a bit more. I'm getting a little straighter here. Show you there. Straightens out quite a bit. So not nearly as wonky as how we started. And I'll just keep going again down the row into all of these loops here from the previous row. So you want to keep going until it's about 6.5 to 7 feet long, so that we can fold over the top and make the pillow pocket at the end.